But actually, a very eye-opening experience over the last several years has been in working with Mae, where there was a record of hers that was done like in super pandemic mode. It was all done over Zoom and audio movers and, you know, that kind of thing. And there were some parts that I was playing on this little 1930s parlor guitar, and she sort of kept asking for it to just go easier on it. And that experience of just cutting those parts that way and hearing in playback how much range, how much dynamic range and harmonic interest there was by playing so lightly. And again, like kind of the way Victor Wooten might let the amp do the work for him, like the mic gain allowed me to like still register in the track, but being light like that.
Packy Lundholm, my dude, thank you so much for making time for us.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since, and I told you this off the mic, I got a hold of that new Mae Erlewine record. I know you've played on a couple of them, but for whatever reason, among the albums I've listened to this year, that one just stood out, like announced itself from moment one. And I'll just reiterate what I said to you earlier, which is the things I like about that record are, I mean, the songs are really great in a way that feels like true and also just like easy to digest.
Sure.
Which just speaks to Mae's phrasing. And did you guys co-write the songs, or is it
no,
all
the songs are all Mae.
All her, yeah, fantastic songwriter,
yeah.
Mae Erlewine.
Oh yeah,
and her great voice.
Yes.
But the fucking sounds on that record, it's just the musicality of the instruments and the space and the conversation. And I remember going for like a long run a couple of months ago, which is oftentimes if I'm like really want to just like listen to a record all the way through, and coming home and just like wearing my poor wife out while we made dinner. I'm like, this the guitar crunches just like this. And I'm like not a guy who like goes into rhapsodic praise over music necessarily, but sure. I was moved to do it. So
wow.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm excited to talk to you. Okay. That's part
Great.
one.
Okay.
The other part is then seeing you last weekend or 2 weeks ago, maybe very recently, at a venue here in Nashville, the Blue Room, when you were opening for Phil Cook, another fantastic musician. I was just like, man, I got to get this guy on the podcast. It was just like just you and solo guitar, and it was fantastic.
Thank you.
So it was awesome to see your prowess live in a room. And I'll stop talking and just say thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we have only met one time before, really, which was when you were in this room accompanying our friend Anna. And I learned from that conversation that you had just recently moved to Nashville.
Yes.
And my first question to you, sir, is what took so long?
A lot of people here are asking me that. A number of them are the people that have been asking me what's taking so long over the last like 10 years or so. Because I have several friends here who, you know, they've been here, they've loved it, and they've always told me that this is the place for me. But I've never lived outside of Chicago, essentially. And I had so much built up there and just so much kind of going on there. And it felt, the prospect of moving away from all that was a bit scary, daunting. And it was, it took a while for me to kind of reach a point where I felt comfortable doing such a thing. And
did you just kind of like take early or kind of tentative, you know, week-long trips, or like kind of dip your toe in the water? Or how did you make that transition?
I've been tons of times over the years,
sure,
you know, to come see said friends and stuff like that. And I played here. I played at the at the Bowl with Theo Katzman in 2023, and I met a couple of the pitch meeting folks, and I met Eric.
Nice.
Pitch. I know he's been on the show.
Yeah.
And he's a nut. He's a total ball buster, and he's hilarious, and he's an incredible musician.
One of one.
And he's a special cat. And he's one of those guys that if anyone he meets in town, he says, "Welcome home." He just wants to pull everyone in. And so he brought all of that energy to when I met him, and he sort of planted a lot of seeds of thinking about what could happen here. What's here to be had, if I brought what I can bring to it and stuff like that. And then it started to look like a thing that could happen. And I was reaching a certain type of burnout in Chicago with everything I was doing up there. And I had a studio up there. I was doing a lot of production and helping people make records was like one of the main things I was doing, and gigging around town and that kind of thing. But I was sort of reaching a point of I had kind of just had enough of carrying the load of like the full service production thing, and started thinking about if some way that I could burn this whole thing down or just focus on one thing that I do or something like that. And it was at the very same time that I went up to Theo's ranch in Michigan to record that album with Phil and a few other guys. And we and Theo had and we had a conversation in the last day of recording there, where he sort of planted the seed of that he was thinking about at least spending some time in Nashville. And he sort of posed it to me in this little bit of a like, what does that feel like to you kind of way? And I was like, and suddenly it just occurred to me that like, oh, that's a thing. I could just do that. Like, why not just try that? I've never been that kind of guy to up and do and try that. And it turns out that a really dear friend of mine here was getting a second house and wanting to rent out the house that he was living in, which is the house that I would visit every time I'd come to town. And I have so many great memories in there. It's such a positive association. And the timing of when he and his family were getting out of that house was going to align very well with when I was wanting to get down here. And so that opportunity felt so right. And everything just felt aligned to, come and give it a shot. And so I took a couple of like recon mission trips here, knowing that at least it was something on my mind, but otherwise it was just coming down here just to hang. And I did a record with my band I Fight Dragons many years ago with Matt Mahaffey at his home studio in Franklin. That was like in 2010. So I had some experience recording and stuff here years back.
Is there a band called Field Report? Is that a band?
Field Report.
Okay, never mind. No, Field. I'm thinking probably like confusing Weather Report and I want to say like field music, but I feel like that there was a band out of the Midwest. This is 10 years ago, probably, that kind of was having a moment. I just went and saw them.
It sounds kind of familiar, but it's either familiar or that's a cool name in any case. But yeah,
we'll take it. Sure. Okay, yeah. You weren't in that band. That's where I'm going. Okay, cool.
No.
So it's my gut feeling is perhaps too, because you were like playing with Theo at the time. You probably had some bigger or tours, some tours lined up, so that you knew that you're probably going to be okay, at least in the medium short term.
Well, the good news is Nashville is just close enough to Chicago that I could keep doing some of the gigs that I had there too. Like I play in a wedding corporate band thing that's booked, basically every weekend that I would want to go and do it. That band is also very flexible with me, like jumping off if I have to go on tour and that kind of stuff. So very accommodating to my kind of other paths and touring and stuff. So I knew that I could always keep going back there to do those gigs, between tours and things like that. So, and I'm still keeping that up. I'm kind of doing a more or less weekly commute up there to do some of that work. And that kind of helps smooth out the rest of the week when I'm kind of finding my way here.
Great.
So, which is, it's nice. It's nice to have that, to sort of support this path. it is getting a little tiring doing that commute. I'm usually flying. Sometimes I drive if there's a bunch of gear I got to bring or something like that. But
like, I don't know if you've thought about this, or one thing that I noticed when I moved here, which was a long time ago now, like 20 years, and I moved from Seattle and was reluctant to make a move like that for this very similar reasons. I had a whole thing and a career and an income that was associated with a fan base that was up there. And in hindsight, it's very uncharacteristic that I did this move to Nashville. Like when you were saying, like, I had never, it didn't occur to me that I could do something like this. I was like, yeah, that rings true.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges I wonder is, like, as long as you're kind of like jumping out of the pool to kind of keep body and soul together, that's that time you're gone. You're still like, it's hard to like expand here.
It's
whenever
true.
You're not here.
Yes, and it's it does feel like a bit of momentum always gets broken up by the trip or by the return and the recovery from the return. Especially because I'm trying to take early flights to get back and to be in town as much as possible. But then that means that I'm like super tired when I do get back, and so I'm still kind of finding a flow with that. And hopefully can start maybe spacing those trips out a little bit more. That kind of thing. I do have a bunch of little tours with Mae coming up that will break that up, or at least if I'm in motion, at least it's tour motion and not commute motion and that kind of thing, which obviously that's not time here building my thing here, but I still consider that part of building the larger thing.
Let's talk about guitar.
Yeah.
This is what I noticed about your guitar playing, apart from just being like really inventive, but you have a great touch on the guitar. And is that something that you notice about your own playing, or you endeavored toward when you were kind of building up your skill set?
I suppose it's not something I thought a whole lot about early on. I know in my early days, I was really into Rage Against the Machine, and I was reading Guitar World articles from Tom Morello and stuff. And he mentioned having a really light touch, and that sort of didn't compute to me at the time, just as heavy of music as that was.
Yeah, because it sounds so loud.
You think you have to dig into everything so hard to do that, and it took a long time to realize that like the equipment can do a lot of that work for you. Even acoustically, it's all in there, and kind of actually Victor Wooten kind of exposed me to the light touch, let the amp do the work thing, and kind of realizing that there's a whole range there to work with. But yeah, for a long time, I feel like I was just hacking away and making my wrists hurt and, just blistering my stuff and all that. So, but actually a very eye-opening experience over the last several years has been in working with Mae, where there was a record of hers that was done like in super pandemic mode. It was all done over Zoom and audio movers and that kind of thing. And there were some parts that I was playing on this little 1930s parlor guitar, and she sort of kept asking for it to just go easier on it. And that experience of just cutting those parts that way and hearing in playback how much dynamic range and harmonic interest there was by playing so lightly. And again, like kind of the way Victor Wooten might let the amp do the work for him, like the mic gain allowed me to like still register in the track, but be light like that. And I realized that the ceiling is the ceiling. You can only hit the thing so hard, but the floor is pretty much infinite. So if the more you can lighten up on the touch, the wider the sort of headroom or range is. And that was something that we really dialed into in these records that we did at the ranch with Theo. The last two Mae full lengths was everybody did that because we were so in an open room and there was mic bleed everywhere, and everybody had to be very controlled. And in doing so, it made everyone's tracks like in playback huge because there was all of this all of this dynamic and harmonic content to what we were doing by focusing in and playing that quietly.
It's like the opposite of compression in a way.
Yeah,
like,
it's expansion. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Where you're, by bringing the floor down, the ceiling gets actually higher.
And the dynamic range increases.
Yeah,
that's so exciting. My mind goes to singing because I think of the tricks, the little hijinks that I pull in front of audiences from time to time. I'm probably a singer a bit first and an aspiring guitarist second.
Cool.
But from touring a lot, I noticed that very same thing where it was just really important to get the monitors to a level that I didn't have to push at all.
Yeah.
Because when I didn't have to push at all, then I could really be artful. I could really just deliver my voice and myself into the song wholly without feeling like I had to cut.
Sure.
And another person who's really good at that, I noticed this is apropos of nothing in a way, but the mandolinist for Watch House, Andrew Marlin, is really great about that in a live situation where I saw him play at an outdoor festival where everybody was mic'd up, and which is often a very difficult situation for acoustic instruments, let alone like 5 acoustic instruments.
Right.
And he's playing mandolin lead, and just like the effortlessness of not trying to dig in and cut, just like letting it do it.
Sure.
And it just made the tone, it just filled the space. It was so lovely. I've never been able to tell him that personally, but maybe he'll listen to this podcast. But anyway, there's so much artfulness to Les.
Yeah, it opens up all of the air around the instrument in a way. You're not just pushing it, And don't get me wrong, I love hacking away. If the thing calls for it, there's a place for that.
I bet Theo's gigs are kind of like not hacking, but like big.
Surprising. Well, yes, it gets there. But that dynamic thing is a huge element of his show as well. The quiets are so quiet. And a lot of the tones are achieved by keeping it kind of restrained and letting, Nick Nagurka's our front of house. And he also engineered those Mae records and mixed them and stuff. He's very tied into the whole dynamic and the whole philosophy of the sound. The sound ends up being huge, but for most of the show, it's pretty light, pretty restrained, pretty light touch kind of thing. But yes, when it's time to slam, then we go, But and Theo is very he studies his voice. He works on it a lot. He's discovered a lot in the last couple of years of figuring out how to access the stronger parts without strain, without stress, without excessive, volume and the things where you're going to injure yourself. And that's helped him a lot to, be sustainable on tour also. And to, help get that stuff across really strong.
Talking early influences, what was it that made you want to, get into music, and then why guitar? And then is there an early formative experience that you could share where you were kind of like had an aha moment or,
Sure. I was a really obsessed kid. This was from the start. I started on drums and have always been kind of a drummer at various times and in various ways, but it started there. And my folks saw that early on, that I was putting together pots and pans, drum kits, and hitting different lids with spoons and listening to how they resonated in my ear in different ways. I think I was just always sort of fascinated with sound in particular, but then also the percussive thing. And so they got me a toy drum kit when I was 3 that I just adored, and still managed to kind of destroy in experimenting with stuff. I remember the ways that I kind of ruined that kit, but that was my first kit for quite a few years. And my parents also, they loved music. They weren't musicians, but they loved it. And they had a really great record collection that was also beat to shit by the time we came along, which meant that...
somebody else wore it out? Or
No, like they did. Like
Okay,
they
did,
they
right.
didn't take.
By the time the kids,
By the time the kids, sorry, we the
Yeah.
kids. By the time the kids came around, all the covers, the cats had scratched through all of them, and everything was just sort of loose. There was no inner sleeves. There was no respectful handling on the edges or anything like that. So, God forbid we find a brush, somewhere. But, and because of that, I cite that as one of the reasons that I and my siblings too got so into it, was that we sort of had this freedom as kids to get our grubby hands on all of these records and sort of engage with them in a way that was very free and very just like childlike and natural. And
And take the needle and bring it halfway through the like drop it on track 4 if that's
like
that?
getting the hands-on experience with that, and kind of getting a little bit into mixtapes or playing radio DJ and that kind of thing was just very, But one of possibly my first real full memory was hearing "I Want to Hold Your Hand" for the first time, and it was coming out of the all-in-one stereo in my sister's bedroom, but that was the stereo for the house. It was like, we would just crank, if we needed to clean the house, we would just crank it up from her room and it would fill the living room, that kind of thing. And I remember hearing that and just losing my mind. It was like, I came online in that moment and just ran around the living room, and I was jumping up and down on my sister's bed. I was so fired up by this and this feeling of what this sound did to me. And I think I was kind of just off and running from that point. And for years, I then got really into the sort of the myth and the production and those sides of those records, particularly the Beatles stuff. And I would do things like put on Sgt. Pepper and find whatever old broken stereo gear might have been in our garage and stuff and stack it all up and just twist knobs and pretend I was George Martin, and just be fascinated with the studio side of all of that too. And all of that. So that was a huge early influence, for sure.
So do you think that you're better at this is a clumsy analogy, but forest and trees, to me, they're like the trees are like the playing and the getting specific with an instrument. The forest is like the production and the kind of the global view. Is there one that stands out in your mind as you're more adept
of a particular role approach, or that kind of approach? Yeah.
Because you said you had a studio and
it's, I guess it kind of varies day to day. In my current state right now, I would like to be more focused on at least any one part of the process, whether that's as a musician on a session or doing the mixing or post-production side, something that's like not the whole
in charge
bag.
part.
Yeah, not the whole thing. Although, sometimes situations arise or I get, the prospect comes up of doing that for somebody that excites me, and I'm like, okay, well maybe I can do that. So I'm probably going to get more back into the larger picture side of it. I just don't know exactly when, but
it occurs to me that if a musician who has a career of any length has to have some familiarity with producing because of just everybody knows how to run a Pro Tools session or whatever.
Sure.
And so like on that Mae record, I call it 10 good songs, but is that what it's called?
So that's
like
10
on
good
the
songs
Spotify there's like a list of things.
So that's Theo's label / sort of production ethos group. It's sort of a loose affiliation. It's not like a
So it's listed probably in the artist
it's just
section.
one of the artists. Yeah. So basically any record that Theo's a part of in the production side is like a 10 good songs record.
I see.
But it's not like an official.
So I'm sorry, what is the record called?
Oh, the record's called What It Takes.
What It Takes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My apologies to you, Mae, for not getting that right right off the bat. Fantastic record. And my question is then that like so I picture you guys in that room together, and you all have sort of like a little bit of a producer's ear.
Yeah.
And that to me is probably part of the reason why the record sounds so good, because everybody's sort of listening with two ears, as it were, like what they're doing and how is this feeling?
I think the production the production-minded approach is just such an element of musicianship anyway. Where like to be the kind of musician who understands the bigger picture and what you are, what piece of that puzzle you are, and what things you're supporting, what things you are making way for, what things you are stepping in front of everyone for, like kind of just knowing the role-playing bit of all of that, which the producer is seeing all of that. I think that's a component of musicianship, of quality musicianship anyway, is that you kind of know what that all looks like. So even if, I think every musician, even if they're not, don't have their hands dirty in Pro Tools or something, you know, they have some degree of production. They have a relationship to that. Yeah. They know what it's for, you know.
Not to belabor this increasingly deeper investigation of the What It Takes album, but just maybe as this is kind of like a gateway into this kind of good framework for understanding kind of these more delicate musical sensibilities. But so I'm thinking back to my, like I said, I really liked the record. I didn't know anything about it. It was just songs and sounds, no backstory. And so it's interesting to know that, you know, when you told me while we were setting up that the record was like everybody in the same room together at the same time, it's like, oh, well, that's probably has a lot to do with that feeling that it elicits. And I don't know if there's anything to be said here, but like, or that can be said, I guess is what I want to say. But it's just very obvious in hindsight and interesting to me that the end result of a piece of recorded music could have, in the warmth of that sound, and the warmth is, it's like the tones are warm, yes, but there's something like, I want to say like spiritually or emotionally warm about the sound of the record. And that would have so much to do with like the physical proximity of the people making the record, like, you know, being there together. I
really appreciate that you feel that and that you shared that, because we really felt that in the room. That was present. That was part of the approach. And I think when you get that right group of people in a circle to do this together and to sort of to focus on what this is together, and not only in the technical sense and the timing sense and the, you know, catching the cues and making sure you know what's going on and who's going to take something where, what are we leaving open here, all of that stuff, but also just the heart of the song, the intent of the song. It's an important part of the process to have Mae, before we like do the take, really kind of just set a little intention of what the song is about, where it's coming from, what kind of spirit to bring or think about while doing it. And I don't think that necessarily has like a direct, it might not inform your like note choices or something specifically, but it puts your heart into the place of what it's about. And I think there's that emergent thing of people in a room doing that together is like, you can't really replicate that any other way. And that's the really magic thing about that to me.
Well, and also I wonder too, if you're having these decisions as a band, you know, you're having a conversation before recording take one. In my mind is like, I replay this, I wasn't there. But in so doing, like everyone's kind of having like, even if since nobody raises their hand and says, I think it should be like this, they're like hearing the conversation, like, I'm making a choice here in advance. And so it becomes the result of it's a collective exploration or creative process, rather than sort of a masterminded that like guy who calls in the overdub guy later. Oh, we're going to do all the organs this week, and it sounds fantastic. And the guy comes in, he nails it. Well, that little part, we should fix that. That is such a different way of recording music.
Most of the songs were presented in that moment. Like oftentimes we don't really have demos. Maybe Theo knew some of them or had voice memos or, you know, some stuff. But by and large, the songs were kind of presented in that moment. And it was like a very quick process of just hear it, here's a couple of changes. I mean, Mae's songs are not necessarily like harmonically or formally complicated. So there's not a ton you need to like juggle.
Memorizing.
Yeah, in that
really
sense, it's not. Yeah. Which, so it certainly makes that element of the process a little faster. But everybody is sort of catching this thing, reaching for this thing and catching it together.
And that under-rehearsedness makes it exciting in a way too. Everybody's like on their toes.
Oh yeah. I mean, the stakes of the group recording, especially when everyone's in a room and virtually no one is isolated. I mean, maybe the bass is being taken direct, and maybe, as in the case of one of the songs, the amp is on the porch of the ranch and just blowing out into the forest to a binaural head mic that's 75 feet away. So really, the isolation isn't that good. But for the most part, anything anyone's doing in that track is going to end up on there. It's very hard to edit something out.
And so in being in that situation, that would make some players hold back a little bit, play out of a spirit of caution.
Yeah.
So how did you, you can only speak for yourself, but did you feel that, or did you?
I did, and there were times, but it was like a positive type of holding back, where I put the focus on listening, where it was all just what's happening around me, and is there something to respond to here? And if there's not in that moment, it's okay not to. And even, there were songs that had solos and things I would have to step out and do the lead on in that moment. And that's kind of the highest pressure from the standpoint of like, you're the focus of the thing.
You were still doing the solos in that same way?
Yeah, like, in the live cut,
high wire, no.
And we're only getting a few takes of these songs. So it's not like, it's got to be right. And so I guess I just found myself slowing down a bit just of the thought process and not feeling like I needed to do too much, or like whatever you're going to go for, know that it's there and like really care that you're going to hit it. And, but there's always little windows of like, you're going to jump off the cliff or do something. And, I think it maybe took a few songs in that process to feel like I could really go for something, and occasionally that would land. Actually no, that often would land.
Yeah.
And it lands when you feel those stakes in a not in a negative way, but like in an encouraging way. A lot of cool stuff happens. You hit things that you think you might not, just because it has to happen. I don't know. There's some kind of belief behind it.
Well, my mind goes to the difference between stage and film in acting. And we associate the recording, the studio process is more of a like putting a ship together in a bottle kind of deal. It's meticulous, it's intentional. It can be even tedious in a way. It's like just getting all of it, the details right.
Yeah.
But there's also like in film, I've done a little bit of this, but one of the things that surprised me early on in acting side of it was the feeling of the absence of pressure in a way. Even though there's a time is money, and oftentimes it's very expensive per minute on set because of so many, all the people being hired and the lights and whatever. But at the same time, like everyone's rooting for you. And like you're picked, you're not auditioning. You've already auditioned. You're in there, you're going to do your thing. And because of the nature of filming, unless like I haven't done a thing where I had to do like a 4-minute long oneer or something like that. So most of it's just like shorter scenes. And with that, you have this like feeling of like, I can, if I fuck it up, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, so that feeling of like, it's really freeing and nice in a way. At the same time, you're trying to get a great take, and there is that sort of pressure. But just so in studio, like I'm the kind of player, I have some chops for a singer-songwriter. Okay. I spent some time chasing Tony Rice for a long time. I can do it. But for me, I have to, like, I'm a lot better if I can think of in advance, like what a solo I might want to play is, and kind of put it together and then play it.
Sure.
Which makes me like not a great guy to give a call to come in and just like know that you're gonna I'm gonna like be a ringer. I'm not a ringer, but so like I would be a terrible in that situation of where it's just like high stakes and like, Korby, you got this solo and it is forever.
Yeah.
And so anyway, to bring it back to the original analogy, stage is much more like that in a sense, except that it's more like acting for the stage, except it's being filmed live and it's going to be seen by tons of people for posterity.
Right.
So it is like the best and most intense kind of combination of all of those worlds.
A little bit of everything.
I think that's why, like, I'm sorry for just belaboring this all, but I'm also like in my own, I think part of the reason why I have this podcast is because I'm on my own intense creative journey, and I'm trying to understand better insofar as like music goes, like what matters to me so much about things, and what, like, where am I going? And not to turn this like into a music therapy session for me, but I noticed that like what you're talking about, like I love that record, and I also similarly like love small production, like small ensemble live scenarios for a very similar reason. And I increasingly care as plugins become more and more available. I care less and less about wild sounds or like really interesting creative choices in the studio. You know what I mean? Like
those choices, I think about this a lot because the technology exists to where really any tone that was impressive or subversive or challenging was any of those tones that have existed are accessible in our pocket essentially. And that the statement of that sound doesn't matter as much anymore. Like it doesn't express what it did when the Kinks were slashing speaker cones to make a fuzz sound. Like that was a challenge. That was like a poke in the eye of something. And now we have every Eddie Van Halen tone accessible, all that stuff. I think there's a degree to which that stuff doesn't specifically matter anymore. And I think we're approaching, and I don't want to like veer all the way into this conversation that every single person is having right now, but I think we're approaching that a point where we're going to need to really come to terms with what elements of human expression are the valuable thing, and what I think we're probably going to relearn a lot of what's valuable about the human expression part of it that is separate from the technology or from the from what that provides. Or it becomes a thing of like, what are the new ways that we be challenging with the technology?
What are the new ways to disrupt?
Because there's no shortage of eyes to poke still. We just gotta poke them. We gotta find. So I don't know what that is exactly yet, but I think you could look at a lot of points in history and nobody really knew what it was yet until someone found it and then started poking all the eyes. So
I mean, like I always appreciated the disruptive elements of music, and obviously like that's what it kind of attracts you. Maybe not necessarily, but did me. The first time I heard the Velvet Underground, it just felt so fuck you, in the coolest way, and there's endless variations on that fuck you attitude, which like the late great Todd Snyder, who just passed, had very much his version of that, and it wasn't a sonic fuck you, it was a lifestyle, it was a being kind of thing. And so there's an eye to poke, and that's available. That's not contingent on sonic expression or sonic choice in a way. So that's encouraged. That's hopeful for me.
Well, and each of those examples had their own craft as well. Like they were very different. They were of very different like traditions, but they were really dug into that. And, you can look at so much of Lou Reed's work like on paper, and that holds up. That's an incredible song there. There's, and obviously with Todd, all of that is so much in that too. Again, like kind of different styles of it, but those things still bubble through and still make the lifestyle aspects and the disruptive, the fuck you aspects of that like matter, because there's that craft underneath it too.
No, absolutely. That rings true. And thinking about this a little bit more about the question, the way I've phrased this, or I think about this stuff all the time as well. For me, I phrase it as like the meaning of music. It's like what you said earlier about how, you can duplicate any thing that's ever been done in a studio with the touch of a plugin preset. And it just makes it instantly, as soon as there's a preset available for a sound, that sound is now rendered forever like anodyne. It's just like a matter of indifference.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If there's nothing, it takes nothing anymore.
And it's that's just the tragedy of it, because those presets are based on iconic sounds that were built to serve an iconic song iconically. Yeah. And now it's like, if you're gonna sound like Walking on the Moon, like everyone's gonna know, like, oh, you're using the Walking on the Moon. That's that. Yeah. So,
And so what has meaning? Like when I think about, just to bring it back to Mae's record, the sounds aren't new. If I'm not, this is not judging, it's just like, it's a new arrangement of familiar sounds. Right. And yet in a way, so I'm exploring this here. Yeah. Like, what is the subversive element of that, or the meaningful element of that? I think we've got at the meaningful part of it, which is just like this exchange between really high level sensitive musicians that all happen at the same time, which is like incredibly meaningful and hardly ever happens. It reminds me of it reminds me of how they used to record the Sinatra records, or like Bobby Darin, where like the arranger would come, he'd put together music, hand it all out. Yeah. Like Bobby would stand on the platform in the center of the room, and they just like, boom, give it one go. And that's why it sounds so musical. Yeah. Because everybody was there at the same time. Fantastic.
But I think therein lies the subversion, because we've spent the last 25 years really building up all of these systems that let us build the ship in the bottle in such a meticulous way like that, as Jerry Garcia would say, that they would say making their records was building a ship in the bottle, and then doing their shows was being in a rowboat in the ocean. And I think by getting people together and getting in that rowboat and expressing the thing again that way, I think that sort of subverts the modern way of doing things and assembling things, which has its place. And I'm not, I'm certainly not a hater of that, but I think that's sort of maybe that's part of the pendulum swing of methods and aesthetics and that kind of thing.
I think that you brought your guitar with you. I wonder if maybe we could, speaking of subversion, probably have some live subversion here in this room.
Oh,
would that be okay? Would you play?
How about it? I'll play. Sure.
Tell me a little bit about this piece, what you're going to play, and maybe you could set it up a little bit.
So it's really funny that you have me here performing as a solo guitar act, as it were. This is really the second time that I've ever performed this piece, or really ever as a solo guitar guy. So for that show that you saw me play at, Phil Cook called me up about a week before. He said, I need an opener for my solo piano show. I'd love to have someone in the family be a part of this. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, I would love that. I've been thinking for a long time about doing a solo guitar type of thing, and maybe could I do something like that? I don't know if I want to like sing my power pop tunes, like for this kind of show, I feel like it has to be that kind of thing. And he was like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Like, go for it. And I think he said something along the lines of like, I would love to hear that debut. So I was like, okay, I think that's full permission to just go for it and do this. And I found myself with about a week to the show, and my wife was out of town for a lot of it. And I had a surprising number of kind of free days in that stretch too, which any other scenario, I would end up just like kind of panicking on my couch, just not knowing exactly what to do, and then just like shutting down. So it was really good to have a project for those few days. And then I just kind of started trying to write and find some stuff. And I was playing through cover tunes and thinking about just what would work in this context. And in doing so, then I found a couple of riffs and a couple of things to just develop and kind of little wormholes to go through. And so this song that I'm going to do is called 65 Deluxe. The name really is mostly random, but it sort of comes from the fact that the song has a few different time signatures between 6 and 5, and I think there's a 7 in there, or maybe a couple of like regular 4s and 8s. I don't even know exactly. It's all kind of just in the hands. And I play this one in the Nick Drake tuning, C, G, C, F, C, E, which was a handful of his tunes were in that. And I'm really proud of one aspect of this song, which is that I finally found a way to play in that tuning that's not just playing Nick Drake songs, because it's so easy to just fall into those things. So in kind of tooling around in that tuning, I found the main riff of that, and then kind of just traveled down that path.
Amazing.
And, so yeah, it was fun. It was fun to find that, and fun to find sort of the looping developing sort of bridge section that becomes a little bit of a finger picking coordination exercise. It took me several days to sort of get the layering of those pieces together, like in my fingers. So, and now it's just really fun to play. So.
I can't wait to hear it. dude, that was fantastic. And the first thing that occurs to me is it's challenging, and that you debuted it at the show live. Mm-hmm. Were you worried about fucking it up?
In a word, yes. It was, I generally don't love playing solo. And the handful of times that I have done so have been kind of more in the singer-songwriter-y sense. And I just always feel a little bit too exposed. I like to have...
it's pretty exposed.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like to have a foil, or something. I like being a front and to the side man. Like, that's my sweet spot. So the solo thing is always a little bit nerve-wracking. But for this show, I found myself very quickly kind of comfortable with the musical aspect of it. And it occurred to me once I got up there that, like, this crowd who was here to see Phil Cook play a solo instrumental piano show, I realized, like, these people are on board with what I'm going to do. Like, they'll come with me as I go here because they know, like, they're fans of what they're going to go along with Phil with in an hour. So I felt very at ease with that. And there's something I realized recently that has helped ease some of the stage stuff, and really eased even some of the maybe not the stage per se, but just in interactions and in various, like, places of performance, and the studio's part of that too, is reminding myself that the crowd wants you to succeed. They're not here as some kind of foe or something that needs to be, like,
obviously
sold.
You haven't lived in Nashville long enough.
Well,
I'm just kidding. No, it's really true.
I'll come back in a bit, and I'll have a much darker view of that, perhaps. But I think, I think the touring with Theo maybe helped me realize that. And I remember we played the House of Blues in Boston, and so there were all of these Berkeley kids there. And I remember, like, leading up to that show, I was like, oh man, there's going to be all these guitar nerds here. They're all going to be just, like, picking apart everything, and it's what are they going to think of my but everybody was like, they wanted it. They wanted the good stuff, and they were into it happening, and they weren't there to be, like, convinced of anything. It was like they wanted the stuff. So it's like, oh, we got the stuff. Let's have the stuff together. And it was, like, a great time. So that has really, like, taken a load off. But doing that for the solo guitar show and realizing that a couple songs in, it's like, oh yeah, remember that thing that you thought that you're trying to remember, and then it all felt a lot better. Talking to the people is still a challenge, but that's its own thing.
Something that always helped me, because I played a ton of solo shows, and some of them had little moments of. From my version of that was that, and this took many years to unlearn this kind of habit. It's like when I was coming up with all the other guys that were trying to be musicians, I was like, I'm gonna fucking show you. I had a little bit of not a chip on my shoulder, but I was definitely, like, competitive. Sure. And that was a metric that I could understand, like Flash. Yeah. And but that whole spirit in which you're offering that is not it. Which obviously. Yeah. And so, and then when I found that when I got in high pressure situations and I had that spirit, I would inevitably, like, crash and burn. I've had a few moments where I just tanked so hard that, like, I just literally could not even play, and I'm in the middle of a song and I'm like, this one of them was for a song contest. I've hung in the song contest world a little bit.
Sure.
And a whole other conversation and things. There's terrible ones that you should completely avoid, and there's some that are really helpful for, like, a touring singer-songwriter. Both in, like, the feather in your cap is helpful, but it's more the people you meet, the people that are like that kind of music, and the other people that are doing it. Anyway, Planet Bluegrass in Colorado has a couple of festivals. One's Telluride, but Telluride Bluegrass, that maybe you've even played it, but
no, but I've heard of it.
You've heard of it, yeah. And The other one's a folks festival, and they do like in Lyons, they have a couple of different festivals, but there's a song contest associated with Telluride that if you get, tapped, you're a finalist for it. It's really awesome. You get, free ticket and you come up I can't remember what the stakes are if you win, but it's a cool one to win. And I was a finalist for it, and I got up there and there's like thousands of people there, and 1,000 people probably there. Sure. And, but there's judges. I don't know where the judges are.
Right.
But so you're being judged. And so that's like not a natural music environment.
Active threat. Yeah.
It's an active threat. There literally are people with their arms crossed and you're being rated, so that situation.
Can't help you there, bro. Yeah, that's a problem. That's going to be a problem.
And like playing, I had my like flashy song, and then just the pressure and the high altitude. And I just I just crashed so hard. Anyway, the story doesn't end. Like I did not win or didn't even place, and it was not a happy time for me, but it was an important learning thing. And the thing that, for the purposes of this conversation, what has helped me before then and since, after I kind of embodied this more and played hundreds more shows, was like to just go like with everybody, like I'm like not showing off here. I'm here, like if I fuck up, like this is I'm here to like show you that you too can do this. That's kind of the spirit. Right. It's just like, great. I'm just a guy doing his best to like pass a few minutes, pleasantly. That is my whole agenda. And if part of that's like kind of crashing or hitting a couple wrong notes or whatever, or making you like, that is all part of the show.
Right.
And that's a little pulled from Todd Snyder, or that ethos of just like, that said, I still love like beautiful playing, which is why I love your playing so much. Anyway,
but you want to offer beauty, but it's an offer. It's an
offering. Exactly.
It's part of, you're living and dying up there just like everyone else. And
it's the same for me with like releasing music. It's really easy to get caught up in the, like, how's the song going to do? How many, like what, how many plays is it going to get? And in some ways that's like unavoidable. You want to care, you want to have an impact, but it's, paralyzing, to do that. And then you're inevitably dissatthouged no matter what happens.
Right.
It's just not enough because there's somebody else that's way. And instead of just like having this has been helpful for me, though it is not a panacea by any means, but just to like, this is what I have to offer and I'm offering it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's it. It's just like, hey, this is, I think it's kind of cool.
Here it is.
Like, here it is.
It's largely why, I make records of my own as well. But I don't really pursue the recording artist entity thing, kind of to avoid that whole feeling of the race of the thing. It's like, if I can carve out a little time in my year to make something and have fun with it and present it and put it there, and there's a handful of people that want it, and I can get enough people to like buy the vinyl to pay for its manufacturing. Great. Yeah. Yeah. And that is a spiritual pitfall that I have tried to avoid.
It's very difficult to navigate. And it's like that.
And the target's always changing, and the cheats are always cheating differently, and what is a real number anyway, and what,
all of it. Yeah. And the higher up you go too, and I don't know this firsthand, but there's, like people start to be dependent on you. You start to be a small business.
Sure.
And, like I thank God, but I don't know what it would be like to be an artist, with a like management, like big, not just like a buddy manager, but like big management. And like, that they're sitting there they're going to tell you you're wonderful, and they're going to tell everybody else, but they're also just sitting there like, I don't know if that one was as good as this last one, and I don't know.
Right. There's always that growth thing. And
there's just so much pressure in all of that. It's just like, better to just like have a little studio and start a podcast and have some shows and have fun with your friends. And
well, I think I think the cottage industry thing of this is a good way to do it. If you can get enough around your cottage, it's a much feels like
cottages are happy. I feel like that's a happy building.
It's a cozy thing.
It's a cozy thing.
I don't think of people having like particularly. I imagine people had bad times in cottages in history, but
sure some nasty things happen
I'm sure,
time
yeah,
to time.
there's some stuff, unspeakable things in cottages. But
on the postcards, they look fantastic.
yeah, I mean, just from an architectural standpoint, and usually it's setting in the country. You know,
Very functional,
it's what
no
you
frills.
want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice setting, nice
Yeah.
landscape. Man, this has been great to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise.
And
Thank you.
I am excited for. I think part of the reason why I wanted to have you in here is just like talk to you a little bit more, and then that makes me think that we're going to be able to do something collaborative in the near future.
Oh,
which I would love to
make
do.
some stuff. I love that. Yeah, I love being a facilitator and just filling. You know, just put me in the room. I'll do whatever.
Fantastic.
So, let's do that.
Yeah, I'm always really co-writing is scary. And
Yeah.
I think everybody maybe feels this way. Some people do not feel this way at all, and that's amazing. But having made most of my stuff by myself, it's always interesting to like do a co-write and or just be or like sit there and do something with somebody else and not feel like the pressure to perform.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I have very little experience in the co-writing space like that, but those couple times that I've done it, it feels like you got to put on a face or a show or
you just don't want to let anybody down.
You got to like bring the goods, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, oh yeah, that
Also, you just don't. There's this fear of saying something stupid, which is inevitable. You have to do it to make
Right.
it. You just got to throw
Sure.
out stuff.
Sure.
And I understand why people have the same co-writing partners. And but actually I had a couple of great co-writes, but I get so worked up about it in advance in a weird way that I've never like said out loud. But
Yeah.
because it's just so the most vulnerable thing. I like so much more to go into a dark room and work it all out in the privacy of my own, mind. Nobody sees all the mistakes. And then I come and I present the thing. And I think that I say that and I hear myself say that. And I'm like, that is a guy who, needs to get over that. And that's my,
Sure.
there's some kind of great phrase or I came across a long time ago. It's like, whatever scares you the most, that is the clue. That is the thing.
Yeah.
That is where to go.
Yep.
And
What's on the other side of that is the really happening thing.
absolutely. And it's so universally true, and it like right in front of us every time we want to acknowledge it. And
Yeah.
I think we spend most of our time not acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And I think the worst case of what's on the other side of that scary thing is just learning that it's not what you want or even if it's not the big step forward, like just knowing, putting that fear away is its own reward too. So,
or doing the thing, the way I would think about that for me is doing the thing in spite of being afraid, afraid, acknowledging it, but not letting it dictate your action.
Sure.
That's a way to maybe hopefully lessen the fear in the future. I know that like for me, like I'm in the process of writing this novel. Okay. This is another thing that I'm doing. And that's like my daily battle. And the terror that I associate with doing that is so irrational and enormous. Like when I look at it and I go like, what is the source of this? What are you so afraid of? And I'm like, well, I'm afraid that it will suck. I'm afraid that not even that anybody else will see that it sucks, but that I will see that it sucks. And then I will know that I spent a bunch of time trying to do something that was hard that I wasn't sure that I could do. And then I would find out that in the end I couldn't do it. And like that, so it's like, I can laugh at that, but it's like, oh, that's so, then, okay, keep going, Korby. Then it's like, well, why, what's so, okay, so you say that all happens.
Right.
Say that you find out you just did a terrible, and you're like not a writer.
right.
Well, is that the end of the world?
Maybe that's okay.
Maybe that's
the
okay.
thing that you learn, and then you can put that behind you, and then there's other paths to chase and other things to
Yeah.
find. And now you know.
Somebody asked me recently, when was the last time I quit something and what did I learn? And I thought about it for so long, and I went like, this is not a brag or anything like that. This is an admittance of liability, which is that I don't know if I ever have.
Wow. Yeah.
like really have.
Sure,
You know, like
sure.
I've pivoted. I've done a ton of pivoting.
Yeah.
And like I've set things down or made like, I'm not like actively writing a ton of songs right now, or I'm like even trying to hang out my singer-songwriter flag at this moment, but I haven't quit it.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm focused on some other thing.
It's right. Something has come in and sort of pushed that there, but that's still there and you haven't.
And so like, I don't know if I
off.
know how to quit.
Yeah.
Like, and that maybe is an enormous, here's a quick pivot on that, which is that I got divorced a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And before that, I remembered thinking growing up, like, oh, I'm divorced. That's what quitters do. That's people who just, you know, it's just too fucking hard. And let's just go our separate ways and we're going to quit. And, in my own process of doing that, which was the most painful thing that had ever happened to me in my life, and also took so long because I'm not a quitter. And then I finally did do that. I had this new perspective which was that like, oh, it's actually incredibly brave in a certain way. We didn't have kids and stuff like that. So I'm not saying this is a categorical, like you should get a medal for getting a divorce, but I had a new, appreciation for quitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so maybe I just need to learn to quit some shit. God. My wife would probably have something to say about that.
It's a version of the power of no, or
for sure.
making the space that you need to do the things that you really need to do or want to do. But it's hard. It's hard to say no, even if it's no to yourself or of a certain path of something, I struggle with that a ton.
You do.
And I don't know how much of that is like the guilt of turning down work, especially like saying no in that sense of like, hey, can you, like I've had to turn down some production offers lately, and it's so terrifying up to that moment of doing it. And then once you send that email, it's like, it's so freeing actually. It's like, oh, I have just kind of bought back some future space. And what's funny is that oftentimes when I do that, some other way bigger yes comes through, like right after that, where it's like, oh, that was the thing that I wanted to be going with. And actually, there's a microcosm of that in some of my songwriting process, where and not to get too into this part of it, but my last few records have been like song a day kind of things, 10 songs, 10 days, written from scratch, recorded, everything. And in the last project, I found myself in the morning starting a song, getting an idea, kind of like looping a riff, working on it. I might get pretty far along into the writing stage of it, realizing that it sucks and being like, oh, damn, like it's already noon. I need to get a song done today. Like, my little circle of internet is counting on me dropping a thing tomorrow. This has to happen. Yeah. And then I'd be like, but this one's not happening. And then I would put that away, maybe grab a different instrument or just like shake it up a little bit and play something else. And suddenly the song is there, like some whole new other thing in a whole other style, whatever. And then that's the exciting thing to me. And then I chase that down and that becomes the track of the day. And it's way better than the first thing of the morning. And it actually, in that last record, it reached a process, like kind of getting into the second week, where I was looking forward to the moment that I hated what I was working on, because I knew that once I kind of like took that, once I threw that away and like reopened up the space, like something new was going to happen there. That was way more it. So, and it worked. So I don't know, just kind of a mini version of of saying no to something and kind of, especially avoiding the sunken cost fallacy. It's like, it's already noon. You've only got so many hours in a day. Like, are we going to keep, as what was it? Does Wiggum say it in The Simpsons? Dig up, stupid. It's they're like down the hole. You can't dig up. So Yeah, I don't know. Just
Just on that note, was there in that analogy or anecdote a time when you didn't finish the song?
a time where like the daily task did not get fulfilled.
Yeah.
No, every time. Now, granted, sometimes that daily song would end up being like a 45-second, Ween-esque, just like punk vomit ditty thing, but it was there, and it's and actually as a part of the larger project, it works. Like it fits into the scheme of it. So even that being its own kind of like joke throwaway kind of like thing, it still got done, and it and so the job was completed.
Just finish it.
Just finish it.
Just finish it.
Do the thing.
I think that's a positive way to end this conversation,
Great.
Packy. Man,
Just finish it.
Just finish it, guys. Stop thinking about it so much.
It's fine.
There's
okay. More on the other side of that thing that you're obsessed with. It's amazing how much it just keeps going. So keep going.
I love it. Packy, thanks so much for your time and talking with me.
Appreciate it, man.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
The Morse Code Podcast is produced by Korby Lenker and Jared Hammond in East Nashville, Tennessee. Our executive producer is Randa Newman. You can find full videos for this and all previous episodes at morsecodepodcast.com.